Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpadarupyas Chakrapa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate giram yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So yesterday our topic was Jivatma. And what we discussed is that we talked about the symptoms of the soul, and there are 6 symptoms that we discussed that every Jivatma undergoes. So the Jivatma could be a plant, it could be a virus, it could be an animal, it could be in the form of a human body. But anything that has life will depict and demonstrate these 4, or rather these 6 qualities. So we discussed that our body keeps changing, but the soul is eternal. And we reviewed a few shlokas from chapter 2, where the Lord says that if birth is certain, death is certain. If death is certain, birth is certain. But nothing happens to the soul, because the soul is immortal, eternal. It cannot be cut. It cannot be put on fire. It cannot be dried. It cannot be withered by the wind. So, and then Lord Krishna says that an intelligent person is not bewildered by these changes, because the soul is simply giving up one body to acquire another body. Now, we also discussed that we all have 2 types of bodies. We have the gross body, which is made of the Panchabhutas, the 5 elements, which is earth, water, air, fire, and ether. We also have the subtle body. The subtle body is comprised of mind, intelligence, and the false ego. So what's the difference between death and liberation? At death, we have to give up the physical body. And when we achieve moksha, we have to give up the subtle body also. And then the only thing that is left is the soul in its original pure form. Sat Chit Ananda. The word Sat means eternal. One of the reasons we are very uncomfortable with the thought of dying, or some of us may even have a fear of dying, is that innately the soul is immortal. So obviously you don't want to die. It's just that you have to give up this body. We don't have a choice about that. So this desire to be immortal is there in every one of us. Even if an animal is feeling threatened, it will do whatever it can to try to protect its body. Now, you may say that is instinct. It may not necessarily be driven by rational or intelligence. Animals do have intelligence, of course. So, the word in Satchidananda, the word Sat means eternal. The word Chit means knowledge. All of us long and desire to have the best knowledge. But the challenge for us is that we are striving for it in the material platform. The kind of knowledge that we are acquiring is really not going to help the soul. It's only spiritual knowledge that is actually going to relieve the soul of the suffering that it is experiencing as a result of occupying these various bodies over millions of lifetimes. So the word Chit means knowledge. So the word Ananda means bliss. None of us want to be unhappy. We are all searching for happiness. That's what we discussed in the first class. Again, that's very natural for us to search for happiness, is because that is innately a quality of the soul. So the three qualities of the soul are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. The desire to be immortal, the desire to have all knowledge, and the desire to experience nothing but bliss. But then, the real Sat, the real Chit, and the real bliss does not exist in this material world. It exists in the spiritual universe. I was telling all of you all yesterday that the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita that this entire universe as it is, not just the material universe, if you include the spiritual universe is called Tripad Vibhuti, and the material universe is called Ekapad Vibhuti. So if I have to draw a circle, a quarter of that circle is this material universe that comprises of billions and trillions of galaxies, universes that we cannot even imagine, we cannot comprehend. We are less than a speck of dust in this universe. But then our ego is so strong, we feel so self-important. That's that false ego. So that means 3/4 of whatever exists is actually the spiritual world. It's comprised of the Vaikuntha planets, it's comprised of the Brahma Jyoti, and it's comprised of the place where Lord Krishna resides, which is called Goloka Vrindavan. So as a devotee, our aspiration is actually to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. Because Satchidananda exists there. Satchidananda also exists in the Vaikuntha planets, but the flavor is slightly different. And the flavor is a little less reduced. If you go, I think somebody asked me a question about Brahma Jyoti yesterday. So if you go and merge into the Brahma Jyoti, the flavor is different there. But the sweetest flavor that you can get of this complete experience of Satchidananda actually comes when you go back to where Lord Krishna resides. That's where you're going to experience Sat, Chit, Ananda. So as long as the soul is occupying this material body, it's going to have a very difficult time experiencing this Satchidananda, unless you are a devotee, then you get a lot of glimpses of what that feels like. Of course, it could not potentially compare to what it may be in the spiritual universe, or what it is in the spiritual universe, based on what acharyas have told us. But that's our aspiration. Our aspiration is to go back to our Father. That's our innate desire. The problem is we're searching for happiness in the wrong place. So as I gave a very simple analogy of a child going out to play and the parent or the mother or the father trying to get them back into the house, they experience a lot of difficulty in convincing the child to come back. Because the child wants to exercise his or her independence and free will and say, no, I want to play for some more time. I'm not ready to come back. So similarly, we said, Lord Krishna is constantly knocking on our door, calling us back. But we are not paying attention to these signals that we get, because we're so engrossed in whatever it is that we keep ourselves busy with on the material platform. So this is why I was saying the spiritual component on our life is in our lives is so important. We should not let that go. We may not be able to spend 80% of our time on spirituality. We may be spending 80% of our time taking care of our family, taking care of our bodily requirements, our other duties and responsibilities based on the bodily platform. But at the same time, we should not be devoid of spirituality. Because if we are, then we are literally depriving the soul of what it really is looking for, which is one of the points that we read on the slide is that the soul is eternally seeking the Supreme Lord. And we talked about this very large wardrobe that Lord Krishna has. And he says the choice is yours. 84 lakh species, we can take any body that we want. So it is said, now why this number 84 lakh species? What is so special about it? That means the Jivatma has 84 lakh different types of desires. So for every single desire, there is a body through which you can fulfill that desire. But then those desires could be very base desires, which causes you to go into the lower species of life. Or it could be exalted desires that causes you to come into the body of demigods. Of course, desire alone doesn't determine your body. Whether you have the karmic credits for it also decides whether you get that particular body. So desire plus what you deserve is your future body or your destiny. And we concluded yesterday's session by talking about how Arjuna has literally an identity crisis on the battlefield. Why should I kill my own family, and why is that acceptable? And we discussed the various lenses that Krishna is providing to Arjuna, through which Arjuna can come to the right conclusion. Although Lord Krishna throughout the Bhagavad Gita is encouraging Arjuna to fight, he says, get up and fight, be determined and fight and win glory. So many statements Lord Krishna makes about the need for Arjuna to fight. But what is so unique about the Lord is knowing that he has given us a little bit of independence, he still doesn't force Arjuna to fight. In the 18th chapter, if you read the 18th chapter, the Lord tells Arjuna, you asked a lot of questions. I have provided you all the answers. And then Krishna asks Arjuna, have you been listening carefully? And then he tells Arjuna, I have given you all the information that you needed. The knowledge, I shouldn't use the word information. It's really knowledge. It's divine knowledge. I have given you that transcendental knowledge that is going to help you make the right decision. And then Krishna says, deliberate over it carefully and make your decision. So Krishna never forces Arjuna to fight. So if Arjuna had doubts after listening to the Bhagavad Gita for so long, and if he still had questions, the Lord would have been ready to answer more of his questions. So the Lord, although he is the supreme controller, although he is the supreme enjoyer, and he is the sole proprietor because everything belongs to him, still he gives that amount of freedom to the individual Jivatma that the Jivatma can make its own choice. So that is a wonderful feature of the Lord, that he does not force us. Right? So today we're going to continue on the topic of Jivatma. However, we're going to move away from the technical aspects of what's the difference between the body and the soul. This technical aspect, this analytical study of the difference between the body and the soul is called Sankhya Yoga. So the second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, which is where you find all of these shlokas on the soul. So today we're going to use a slightly different lens to understand the Jivatma. So we'll begin today's session. Okay. So let's offer our humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So before we begin, I have a question for you. You can respond in the chat because I have muted all of y'all. The question that I have is, does the plant have consciousness? Do plants have consciousness? Okay. Yes, so even plants have consciousness. It is said that even plants experience pain when you cut them or you pull them out of the ground. They too experience pain. So yes, even plants have consciousness. Animals have consciousness. Human beings have consciousness. But the degree of consciousness varies among species. So it should be no surprise at all that it is in the human form of the body that we have the highest level of complete consciousness. Highest level of complete consciousness. So I have another question for you. So this time, please raise your hand. I will unmute you and call your name. You can answer the question. So I'm going to give you a comparison and you need to tell me, I will ask you the question. So let us say in the government, there are many, many positions. Let us say there are 2 roles. in the government. One person is occupying the role of a finance minister. The other person is a clerk in one of the departments, say Department of Education. So you have two individuals who have a job in our government. One is the Minister of Finance. The other one is a clerk in an education department. Between the two of them, who do you think has more responsibilities? Please raise your hand. Yes, Swapna. Swapna, you raised your hand. You can answer the question. Okay, so I don't think Swapna is unmuting. Omkar.
Namaste, Mataji. I think Finance Minister has more responsibility.
Okay. Now, my next question to you is why?
Because he is located at a higher position.
Okay. Do you think he gets a higher pay than the clerk?
Yes.
Okay. So that means if a person is in a higher position of responsibility, more is expected of them or less?
It's more, Mataji.
More. Okay. So similarly, for us, when we achieve the human form, more is expected from us than any other Jivatma. Our responsibilities are much heavier than, let's say, if we were in the body of a dog or a cat or any other animal. So when we are carrying that burden of heavier responsibilities, then we need to understand how we need to conduct ourselves. We cannot operate blindly in life. When we know this body is very precious, this human body is very rare. It's very rare to get the human body. So that is why when the Lord created this universe, along with it, he sends the Vedic scriptures. So the Vedic scriptures are actually going to help us understand what should we do with this human form of life. So the Vedic scriptures are organized in such a way that they logically lead you to the path of self-realization. So I'm sure most of you would have heard about these four terms called Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma means practicing spirituality. Artha means economics, the right to earn a living. So that right to earn a living comes after you have learned what is Dharma. So where do you think we will learn about Dharma? In the Gurukul. Traditionally, Gurukuls taught you the principles of life based on Vedic scriptures. After you have understood the Vedic scriptures, you are now ready to apply it in your personal life. And if you want to earn a living, so let us say there are 4 varnas and 4 ashramas, right? You have the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and the working class. So you have these 4 ashrams. And you also have, that is the varnas. The 4 ashrams is the Brahmachari ashram, the Grihastha ashram, the Vanaprastha ashram, and the Sannyas ashram. So Grihasthas are allowed to earn a living. Brahmacharis are not, Vanaprasthas are not, and Sannyasis definitely are not allowed to earn a living. Which means in the 4 ashrams, there is only one ashram where you are authorized to actually make money in order to enjoy yourself. Definitely, brahmachari ashram is not about enjoyment. It's about learning. Vanaprastha ashram again is not about enjoyment. It's about retirement from your material life. And definitely sannyas ashram has nothing to do about enjoying yourself materially. It's about complete self-sacrifice. So which means there is, of the 4 ashrams that Lord Krishna has talked about, which is this is called the spiritual ashram. The varnas are called the social ashrams, the social divisions rather, and the spiritual levels are called the ashrams. So only if you're a grihastha, you are authorized to earn a living. Otherwise, you're not authorized to earn a living. But you should first learn something about dharma before you decide whether you want to get into grihastha ashram. So grihastha ashram is the ashram with the highest responsibility, heaviest burden. Because once you decide to get married and have children, it comes with a lot of responsibilities. The brahmachari ashram and the sannyas ashram, definitely they don't have as many responsibilities, although they are engaged in different levels of sacrifices, personal sacrifices. So the heaviest burden actually falls on the grihasthas. But grihasthas, so we said dharma, artha, you're allowed to earn a living. If you make a living, obviously you want to use that money to enjoy yourself. So that is kama. So kama means you have entered grihastha ashram, you have the authority to earn a living, and you're going to use those earnings to support your family. So the desire will be there. I want a nice house, I want good clothes, I want good food. These are desires that you can fulfill in the grihastha ashram through kama. But the Vedas are also set up in such a way that they force you to recognize that you're experiencing tremendous misery as you're leading your life, which is then going to, logically speaking, if you're intelligent, you will ask that final question, which is, why am I suffering? I want to be happy, but distress keeps coming at certain intervals. Why am I not able to break free of that cycle of distress? So when you ask that question, that takes you to that final stage of asking and seeking that knowledge that's going to lead you to the path of moksha or self-realization. So this is how the Vedic scriptures are organized: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. But then we have a problem in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, we are predominantly under the influence of tamogun. I was actually reading the Bhagavatam shlokas in preparation for today's class, the 12th canto, and I will cover that probably at the end of the class. Some interesting things that Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj about the symptoms in Kali Yuga and the features of Kali Yuga, some of which if I read, you will say, oh, it has already happened, or it's already happening. So whatever Shukadev Goswami predicted and told Parikshit Maharaj, this is how Kali Yuga is going to be, is already happening. So coming back to the point, if you have acquired a human body, it comes with a great deal of responsibility. Our responsibility is to be educated in the scriptures and follow the instructions of the scriptures. Does it mean all of us are going to be searching for moksha? No. Some of us maybe, but not all of us. Even if you're not searching for moksha, or if you're not clamoring for it, or you don't have a desire for it, even then, the Shastras say you should operate within the Shastras. Let's say you want to enjoy yourself. You want to make a lot of money, or whatever it is that you want to do. Do it within the boundaries of the Vedic scriptures. Don't cross over. Because if you cross over, then you are committing vikarma, as we discussed. Yes. So, in those days or in other yugas, maybe even in early Kali Yuga, the proper form of government was that you would have a king. And the king would surround himself, the king being a Kshatriya, would surround himself with Brahmanas who were well versed in the scriptures. So whatever the king did from a governance standpoint would always be based on the scriptures. Or rather, that is what an ideal king would do. So I will relate a little pastime from the Ramayana. If at all there is an untimely death in a family, the king is considered responsible for that death. So one day a Brahmana comes to Lord Ram's palace and rings the bell seeking an audience with Lord Ram. And Lord Ram asks him to come inside. And the Brahmana says to Lord Ram, you know, your Rajya is famous as the Rama Rajya. You are the Lord of Dharma. But I lost my son. And you are to blame for the death of my child. Because if you were really a dharmic king, my child should not have it. So we think the position of a king is a very luxurious position. It's easy, you know. Yes, it may come with its trappings of wealth and comfort. But the king's role is far more significant than that. Our Shastras also say, if the king does not provide good governance, he takes 1/6 of everybody's sins he has to accept in his entire kingdom. So if I commit a sin, he has to accept the karma of that from me, a portion of that. That is the position of a king. So this kind of position is it's not a light thing. It's a heavy burden. So anyway, coming back to the story. So this Brahmana was complaining to Lord Ram, you have allowed adharma somewhere in your kingdom, which has caused the death of my child. And of course, after Lord Ram hears this from the Brahmana, he becomes very perturbed. He doesn't know what to do because as far as he knows, he's been providing good governance. It's a large kingdom, but soon enough, who comes? Narada Muni comes. And Lord Ram tells Narada Muni this has happened. This Brahmana has lost his child and I'm responsible for it. And Narada Muni tells Lord Ram, yes, there is one personality that's doing some severe tapas in the forest. You should go find him. So saying this, Narada Muni leaves. So Lord Ram has to go in search of this person who's performing some severe austerity deep in the forest. So the Pushpaka Vimana comes. The Lord climbs into the Pushpaka Vimana and goes and finds this personality. And what is this man doing? He's hanging upside down from a tree. And Lord Ram asks, who are you? And he says, I am Shambhuka. And Lord Ram asks him, okay, Shambhuka, what are you doing hanging upside down? So Shambhuka tells Lord Ram, I am practicing severe austerity because I want to displace Indra and I want to take on the role of Indra. The Shambhuka happened to be from the working class. And as if to add insult to injury, he tells Lord Ram, not only am I going to displace Indra from his position, or whoever was occupying that position of Indra, I am also going to take on his wife. Indra's wife name is Sachi. When Lord Ram heard these words come out of this Shambhuka's mouth, he kills him on the spot. No more questions. No more questions asked. The minute the words, I am going to take his wife, Lord Ram killed Shambhuka. So when Lord Ram comes back to the palace, the Brahmana's child is revived. He gets his life back. The child gets the life back. So this is the importance of understanding that if you occupy a human body, we need to know what our duties and responsibilities are. Our duties and responsibilities are not simply to make money, and it's just not a factory model of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's not what humans should be only focused on. So that comes to the slide now. What are the 4 acts common between animals and humans? It's these 4 that I just mentioned. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Animals protect, we protect our property. Animals mate to procreate, human beings mate to procreate. Both are interested in shelter as well. But then there is a fundamental difference between the two, which is 1 is the level of intelligence, 2 is the level of consciousness. So the question you and I need to ask ourselves is, what kind of life are we leading? Are we leading a life of an animal, or are we truly leading a life of a human being? So today's slides I can go over very, very quickly because I don't have that much content. But this is an interesting slide. What you see on the left-hand side, the question is, what are we worth? So this human body is comprised of various minerals, and so is the BMW. Ultimately, we are all chemical compositions. So my very quick question to you is, if I take all of this weight of all of these minerals, okay, they are all in like milligrams. And if I try to sell all these minerals in the market, how much do you think I would get? You can put your guess in the chat. And then tell me how much that BMW is worth. Take a guess. How much is this human body? If I sell the chemicals, yeah, somebody knows their BMW, huh? Okay, what is the BMW worth? And what is this set of chemicals that comprises the human body worth? We know that the human body is 70% water. The rest of it is comprised of these minerals, your flesh, etc. 150 rupees. Okay, what about the BMW? Nobody is guessing what the cost of the BMW is. Human body is priceless. Okay. Yeah, it's about almost, it's 70 lakhs, 70 to 75 lakhs is the price of that particular convertible that you see. But just imagine the design feature of the Lord. Just look at the brilliance of our Creator. For 150 rupees, let's just say that's the right value. It's not more than that. For 150 rupees, the Lord has designed the most complex machine that there ever is in this cosmos. And the Lord's design is so supreme that it is so symbiotic. He didn't create a factory. He didn't go mine for minerals. He doesn't have to worry about supply chain, logistics, marketing. Very frugal innovation by the Lord. For 150 rupees, he's constructed the most complicated machinery. It does not pollute the environment on its own. Whereas with this car on the right, I have to, first of all, dig deep into the earth to get the coal to fire up the steel plant. Then I need so much water. I need so much electricity. I need transportation. I need logistics. I need supply chain. And if I have to produce another car, I have to literally produce another car. If I put two BMWs together, they cannot mate with each other and give birth to another car. Just look at the design of the Lord. No factory setup. One male, one female, procreate, and then the factory model is going on. All 7 billion of us have been produced by the Lord's ingenious design. In corporate world, we talk about design principles and whatnot. No, the best design principle is coming from the Supreme Lord. No waste. But what is interesting is that the same body, if you were to only sell the chemicals in the market, is probably 150 rupees or something like that, maybe maximum 200 rupees. But once you're dead, then suddenly your body parts have a whole lot more value. Why is that? Because it has an opportunity to save another life. This life is so precious. There are people who are on waiting lists to get a lung, to get a liver, to get a heart. So many things. There is all kind of black markets across the globe that deal with body parts of human beings, besides the legitimate channels. So let us say there is an accident and your dear friend is driving this BMW. Let's keep that BMW in mind. Knowing that that set of chemicals is worth 200 or whatever, 200 rupees, and this one is worth around 60, 70 lakhs. If there is an accident, would we save the vehicle or would we save the driver? You may think, why am I asking such a silly question? I'm about to connect it to our topic today. Would you save the vehicle or would you save the driver driving that vehicle? The obvious answer is you will save the driver and not the vehicle. You will pay more attention to the driver who is injured than the vehicle. The vehicle can be replaced even if it is destroyed. The driver is precious. So similarly, we should not pay too much attention to our body. Our body is that vehicle. We have to pay attention to the soul that is residing within that body. The soul is precious. It's precious to the Supreme Lord because we are part and parcel of Him. So essentially, we are saying the human life is a very valuable life. So I'll just quickly read these posters. All that is valuable in human society depends upon the opportunity for development accorded the individual. Meaning, if that individual can develop, focus on self-development, then that person becomes valuable. So here, of course, development could be material development, it could be spiritual development, it could be intellectual development. The most important thing is to have a sense of responsibility, commitment, and concern for each of our fellow human beings. There is a very nice saying by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, who's a dear disciple of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. I may not remember the exact words that Maharaj used, but I believe he said, in this Kali Yuga, we have learned to love objects and use human beings instead of using objects and learning to love human beings. So we need to value each other and not just objects. The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Why were you born? Why have you taken birth? There is no cause more important for preserving freedom than affirming the transcendent right to life of all human beings, the right without which no other rights have any meaning, which means we all have the right to life. Nobody should kill us, including if we happen to be in the womb. Human life is invaluable, but we behave as if there is something even more valuable. Human life is far more important than getting to the top of a mountain. So that last quote was from Edmund Hillary. He was the first person to conquer or climb Mount Everest. So now that we know that human life is so valuable, and we've also discussed the activities that are common between humans and animals, we're going to talk about what are the differences. So I'm going to give you all an opportunity to raise your hand. Let's figure out what are the differences between animals and humans. So you can raise your hand. I will call your name. Please don't unmute yourself and speak. It'll be easier on the recording. I don't know your name. Your name, it says iPhone. So you have to please tell me what is your name. Somebody has the name iPhone.
Ma'am, Mataji, it's me. My name is Sangeeta.
Your name is?
Sangeeta.
Sangeeta, okay. Yeah, tell me, Sangeeta. What's the difference between an animal and a human?
Humans can think, but animals cannot think.
Animals cannot think?
IQ is different from animal and humans.
Animals can think.
IQ, I said IQ.
Okay.
Logic and IQ.
Logic. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sangeeta.
Thank you.
Is that Sudashri?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes.
The difference between an animal and human being is animals cannot perform any kind of spiritual service. They cannot they cannot spend the time understanding the soul, or they cannot chant God's name or any spiritual practice. They cannot do the dharma. for
Mhm.
example, but a human being can understand his or her existence and
Yes.
can perform dharma.
So the animals cannot ask the why questions. Why me? Why am I suffering? They don't search for the truth. But they are obedient to nature's laws. They don't transgress nature's laws. Okay, thank you, Mataji. Omkar Prabhu?
Mataji, animals cannot have control over the senses. For example, we can observe the fast that is Ekadashi Vrata, but
Mhm.
animals cannot simply do it. And another thing is spirituality. So they know what is human beings know what is God, but animals have no awareness at all.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Ashwini?
Animals can't read, Mataji. Humans, we can read, understand. Especially reading capability.
Okay, that means the Vedic scriptures are not meant for animals, it's meant for human beings. Yes. Okay. Prashanta? Is Prashanta Chakrabarti there? You can unmute yourself.
There is difference in consciousness.
Consciousness, yes, very good. That's accurate. Okay, one more. Suparna? Hare Krishna, Suparna Das. Okay, so let's look at what are the differences. So animals also have the ability to rationalize, but it's very limited. They are also intelligent. There are certain things that animals do far better than us. The eagle has the capacity to see things on the ground from a couple of kilometers up in the sky. Mosquitoes reproduce every day, every few hours. That's why you have so many of them. So animals have features or talents that humans do not have. There are certain things that animals do far better than us, right? So then now what is the difference between dead matter? That BMW is considered dead matter. This body is also considered dead matter if the soul is not residing within it. Because the soul has this energy, it allows the body to experience these 6 symptoms that we were talking about with this, which is the birth, growth, maintenance. Then we produce something, then we dwindle and we die. Produce meaning we procreate. But dead matter, like that BMW, at best it undergoes depreciation. So living matter is called Chetan in Sanskrit, and dead matter is called Jada. And the other thing that is unique about a living being or a Jivatma is its ability to perceive mental activity and purposefulness. This is there even in the animals. Perception, mental activity, and purposeful activity, but it is at a much lower grade level. Dead matter cannot think, it cannot will, it cannot feel. There is no intentionality there. But what is unique about a human being is that we seek what I said, right? We are seeking immortality, we are seeking knowledge, and we are seeking bliss. That is Satchit Ananda. It's our eternal quest. We are searching for it, searching for it, searching for it, except we are searching for it in the wrong place. It does not exist here in the material universe. It exists only in the spiritual world. Therefore, it makes sense for us to find out how we can go back to that original form that we had of Satchidananda, which is eternal bliss that comes with associating with the Lord. So yes, all of us do need to take care of our basic physical and physiological and psychological needs. But the higher up you go in this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you come to the human platform, which is one of esteem and self-actualization. Even animals care for their young ones, and therefore there is love even in the animal kingdom. It may be expressed in different ways. So the question is, we have all the comforts that we need with us, but yet we are not happy. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is because we are leading polished animal lives. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of one of the shlokas that I was reading today, that human beings in Kali Yuga are just polished animals. We are doing the same 4 things that animals do: eat, mate, sleep, and defend. And Prabhupada says that a vast majority of society doesn't even care about spirituality, doesn't care that they're suffering. They are living a life of complete ignorance. I found this quote, which is very ironic and funny at the same time. In human life, we purchase things which we don't need to show off to people who we don't like. And we are doing all of this with money that we don't own, which means we are funding our lifestyle based on EMIs. Everything is being funded based on debt to do things that we really actually don't need. Our Shastras say that it is considered a sin to take a loan. And there's actually a very logical reason for that, because the minute you take a loan, it creates anxiety in you. You have to pay it back. So our Shastras recommend, if we don't have the capacity, we should not overextend ourselves to get something. Definitely loans are not sanctioned as per Shastra, because it creates unnecessary anxiety for the Jivatma. The pressure. Of course, if you choose not to pay it back, then that leads to a whole lot of different sinful activities as well. So human beings are not happy. So a lot of us are dealing with anxiety, with stress, with depression, especially during the COVID times. Some of us may have experienced this starkly. So some of us would have lost our confidence. We may have lost our jobs. We may have lost family members. We may have fallen very ill, and it would have impacted us significantly. But the question is, why are we suffering? We are suffering because we are coming under the influence of the 3 gunas, and we are also suffering because of the 3 kleshas. So we'll talk about the 3 kleshas and then try and conclude the session. So we said the privilege of human life is that we have the ability to ask questions. Why am I suffering? Where am I going to go next? Why am I growing old? Why am I getting disease? How can I get that permanent bliss? Therefore, our scriptures, one of the sutras in the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasa. Brahma Jignasa means it's only a human being who has that inquisitiveness to ask these questions. Why am I suffering? Or who is that Brahman that need to search for that supreme absolute truth? That quality exists only in human beings, not in animals. Right? There are things that impact the way we view life, which is our own sense of self, which we call the false ego. Past life conditioning, which means what we've done in our past lives. How we have been brought up, what have we been exposed to? Who do we associate with? Who do we keep friends with? and then our own willpower to overcome many obstacles or to try to alleviate the obstacles and suffering. So there are three types of miseries that all of us undergo. There are no exceptions to this. So the three terms are Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, and Adi Daivika. Adhyatmika are those kinds of miseries and sufferings that we inflict on ourselves through our thought process, through our activities, through our actions. And this we experience when we either worry about little things. It can cause stress, it can cause physical ailments, or we may make the wrong decision and that is going to cause us stress. So one primary factor that is causing misery for us is ourselves. And that misery is caused because of our ignorance. Another element that causes us to experience misery in life is called Adi Bhautika, meaning suffering and misery inflicted on us by others. By others in society. And then we come to the third kind of misery that we all experience, which is called Adi Daivika. It is called Daivika because this is under the control of the demigods. So we may have floods, we may have earthquakes, we may have forest fires, we may have droughts. All of this is controlled by the Devatas. So Mother Nature also inflicts misery and suffering upon us. So these are the three kleshas due to which we experience distress. Ourselves, other Jivatmas, and Mother Nature. All of us go through this. There is no way we can stay in a bubble. So this is just nature. This is how this universe is constructed. So the thing is, how do we find a solution for this? I mean, there are temporary solutions and then there is a permanent solution. The temporary solution is to fix the symptom and not the root cause. The permanent solution is to find out what is the root cause and try and address that root cause. For us, of course, that root cause is our past karma. And that can be resolved by performing a karma, as we discussed in the karma session. So for all material problems, we have all kinds of material solutions. There is no end to the amount of research and money that is being spent on just helping us live more and more comfortable lives. The more we try to make ourselves comfortable, the more diseases we will have, the more miseries we are going to experience. Right? So we have all the latest things to help us, but still, we are not happy. That means something else is necessary. So in this shloka in chapter 2, the Lord is telling Arjuna, Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitam arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. So, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, even if you enter into Grahastha life, you have family members. Yes, you have a duty and responsibility towards your family, but you shouldn't become overly attached. You shouldn't think that your family member is yours. Yes, they are your responsibility. You have the duty to serve them, but they don't belong to you. They belong to the Supreme Lord. So that sense of I, me, mine, this is my family, this is my thing, this is my nation, this is my society, this is my house, this should be eliminated. Nothing belongs to you. You came empty-handed, you're going to go empty-handed. Everything has been provided to you by the Lord. That is why he's called the sole proprietor of everything. So even your family members do not belong to you. So Krishna is saying, don't grieve because somebody is going to be put to death because of their adharmic ways. Right? So what is our problem? Our problem is that we are spending a lot of time taking care of that BMW and not the driver sitting inside driving it. So similar to this analogy of the bird in the cage, the bird inside is the soul. The cage is just a body. The body is going to decay over a period of time. So our priority should be the soul. If you focus on the soul, your body and other things will get taken care of. That's what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. But we are doing the reverse. We try to take care of the body first and then we reject the soul or we neglect the soul. Krishna says, do it in the reverse. Make time for the soul. And what does the soul want? To be connected to the Lord. If you make time for the soul and make sure that you feed the soul properly, your bodily necessities will automatically be handled very nicely because you will make decisions in the proper perspective. So perspective is important for us. So Krishna says in chapter 2 to Arjuna that all of us have two dharmas. We have what is called Swadharma and we have what is called Nitya Dharma. Swadharma means anything and everything to do with the physical realm. We have duties and responsibilities to our own selves, to our families, to our extended families, to our society, to nation. All of this we must take care of. We cannot neglect it. But at the same time, every human being also has what is called a Nitya Dharma, which is a duty towards the soul. So how do you fulfill this duty towards the soul? Well, in ISKCON, we have a very simple formula, which is called ABCD. A is for association with others who are practicing God consciousness, devotee association. B is for reading the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, reading the scriptures, books, religious books. C is for chanting the holy names of the Lord, which is the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga. And D is for deity worship and changing your diet. Our diet should always be Krishna Prasadam and nothing else. So if we follow this instruction that Lord Krishna is giving to Arjuna, that we have Nitya Dharma, we also have Swadharma. We need to take care of both. There should be a proper balance, but it has to begin with Nitya Dharma and then move towards Swadharma. That is Lord Krishna's instruction to Arjuna. So Krishna is also saying in the Bhagavad Gita, real intelligence. This is Krishna's explanation of who he considers intelligent. He says, I consider those people intelligent who understand that there is a difference between the body and the soul and also understand which is more important and then work accordingly. So our meaning comes in life when we go beyond the physical body. So we have to ask ourselves, who am I? Why am I unhappy? Who is God? What's my relationship with him? And if I'm related to him, what am I supposed to do about it? Right. So this is the last slide. So we have two choices, a path to self-destruction or a path to self-enlightenment. The choice is ours. Krishna does not interfere in what decision that you're making. So if we consider this body to be the whole chariot, the senses, the five senses, the indriyas, are like the 5 horses. If you don't control the horse with those reins, each horse will go in a different direction. So the senses are the horses. The horses are like the children. Children don't necessarily have a great deal of self-control. And therefore, externally, control has to be imposed on them. So similarly, control has to be imposed on the senses by the mind. So it's the mind that kind of reins in the senses. The mind is powerful, but it is not independent. So the senses is compared to the children who need to be controlled. The mind is compared to the wife who is chaste, who's pure. And intelligence that influences the mind is seen as the husband. So the intelligence should be enlightened so that through that intelligence you influence the mind and the senses. Because in our culture, the man is responsible, man as in the husband, the father, is responsible for the liberation of his family members. He is responsible for their moksha, which means he has to be well educated in the scriptures. Even if he's a grahastha, he needs to know what is right and wrong, and then maintain his family accordingly. Guide his family back to the path of self-realization. So he should seek self-enlightenment and then guide his family to the path of self-enlightenment. Only then a man should get married. Otherwise, he should not take on that responsibility of being a grahastha. That is what is enjoined in the Shastras. That's the responsibility of a man. So our Shastras say no man should get married if he cannot do this for his family, which is take them down the path of self-realization. So the soul is the passenger. This passenger is our consciousness. So with the correct identity, we can do the right thing. We can go back home. So just as a very small mahout sits on an elephant and controls a giant elephant, this intelligence can control the entire mind and senses with a very small level of understanding by training its intelligence on higher levels of consciousness. So the last slide for the day. Actually, there's one more slide after this. So how do you make sure that your mind and intelligence are at the right level so that you're making the right decisions in life? You're not agitated by the things that are happening around you. You are not subject to anxiety, temper tantrums, anger, disappointment, disillusion, depression. How can you do that? See, the mind cannot be trained because it is spontaneous. The mind is the place of emotions. There are likes and dislikes. Intelligence can be trained because that's where rationale is, that's where thoughts happen. And the ego is acting as a glue, keeping all of this together. So the misidentification for us is that we think we are the master. In reality, we are the servant. Servant of whom? We are the servant of Krishna. So this entire material world was designed to inflict punishment on us so that we begin to ask questions, so that we can begin to reform ourselves. So if we simply acquire knowledge, no transformation will happen. But we have to apply knowledge, then you will see transformation. So we said how in ISKCON we apply this knowledge, we practice this ABCD formula. Associate with devotees, read the scriptures every day, chant every day, do your deity worship every day of Lord Krishna or any other Vishnu tattvas, and change your diet. Make sure you're offering whatever you're making to Krishna and only then accepting it as prasadam. So the benefits of chanting is listed in that chart at the bottom right. You see, the 3 gunas are represented here actually. So I will ask you all a question. You can raise your hand and tell me, what do you think that red zone, what are the 3 gunas, by the way? What are the 3 gunas? Please raise your hand. Yes, Prashanta Prabhu, what are the 3 gunas?
Sattva, Raja, and Tamas.
Okay, that the chart that you see that's in red, what guna do you think it represents? This is the brainwave frequency of somebody who does mantra meditation, chanting. Okay, so the frequency of 0 to 8, there are 2 layers, a sleepy zone, a drowsy zone. Which guna is that?
Tama.
Tamagun, okay. Then there is a zone where your brain frequency is at the ideal of 8 to 13. What guna is
Rajas.
that?
Rajas.
No,
No. Sattva.
Sattvagun, yes. Very active, very aggressive. You go into the Rajagun. That is the red zone.
Oh, yeah.
So 13 and above, 13 to 18 is the active zone. If you're beyond 18, you're in hyperactive zone. So it is proven that those who do this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra chanting, they are in that 8 to 13 zone, which is called that relaxed alert zone. You're relaxed, your mind is relaxed, your emotions are under control, and you're able to see things clearly, and therefore you're able to make decisions clearly. So we want to reach that zone, that is that relaxed alert zone. The easiest way to get there is by simply chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. So if you do this, it will really benefit you. For those who have answered no to chanting when I asked that question in the beginning of the class, please do practice chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Doesn't matter if you have beads in your hand or not. Just chant it early morning if you can. And do this for 40 days and you will see a huge change in you. You will not get agitated very easily. You will be a little bit more calm. You will not criticize others. You will not go out of your way to find fault with others. You will not pick fight with others. You will begin to start working on yourself. So spiritual growth centers not on inaction, but on action with the deepest sense of purpose. So when we speak spirituality, people think, oh, spirituality means laziness, sitting in one corner doing japa or meditation and generally not associating with the world. That is not true. Spirituality means active life, but centered life. Keeping God in the center. That is spiritual life. So knowledge is best received when it is desired. So if you desire to change your life, if you desire to transform who you are so you can be a better person, then you're in the right place. You're attending the right class. You've come to the right institution. And I would encourage you to seriously consider chanting on a daily basis. And also, of course, sign up for our advanced classes because you'll learn a whole lot more there. So we'll stop here. Vancha kalpadarupyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnava vrindi ki jai jagat guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.